This project started with a paper mache pumpkin that I bought years ago. Unfortunately, it's no longer available. I used the Roycycled Decoupage paper, Halloween blocks 2. I cut my paper a little too short, but I fix it later. Paint your background white so that your paper doesn't blend in. Let it dry. Then I'm using 1 hour enamel clear in the matte finish as my decoupage medium. I also like to crumple up my paper, especially because I had planned to do a glaze over the top, but I ended up not doing that. You want full coverage with your decoupage medium, but sometimes I miss some spots, so I'm going back in and getting my edges, and here I'm matching up where I messed up earlier. Trim your edges and decoupage them down. We will paint over them later. Add a coat of your decoupage medium over the top to seal everything in. Now I'm going to do the other side of my pumpkin with pieces and scraps. I'm tearing the edges on this so that I don't have a bunch of straight lines. You usually want your paper to dry before trimming the edges, but here I'm sanding it off because I want an uneven line on this scrap so that I can use it at the bottom and to fill in all my edges. I decided to add some scraps over the straight lines that you could see of the moth paper underneath. Now I'll paint my edges black with Wise House Chalk Synthesis paint. This is just a base coat for underneath my trim. I'm using the Orchid Designs air dry clay and their trimmings to mold. Knead your clay and press it into the mold. I like to push up from underneath the mold before trying to release it. The clay is flexible before it dries, so I will be dry fitting it on my pumpkin and using Tight Bond quick and thick wood glue to adhere it. Press the cast into the glue gently, not too hard. You don't want to lose your details. The mold has a repeating pattern so that you can match it up. I try to get mine as close as possible. I add extra glue to the edges trying to keep it together, but it will shrink as the clay dries. I'm using a ruler to trim off the extra at the bottom. After I finished the trim, I added a coat of black paint. I'm using a little bit of water to get it down into the details. I did paint it gently before the trim was dry. After drying, it left a gap, so I am filling in with a little extra clay and then painting on a second coat. After the paint dried around the edges, I added some gilding wax. I find applying it with my finger gives me more control so that I can hit just the high points and really bring out the details in this mold. I felt like the decoupage paper needed a little something extra, so I used the chalk synthesis paint watered down, my water bottle and a paintbrush, and pulled the paint down the paper. And it's almost finished, but I think it needs one more thing: paint splatter. I think you could take this concept to a wood or cardboard cutout, but just put the trim around the facing edge. Or you could do it on a 3D thrift store pumpkin that needs some upcycling. I'm Gingy with Louisiana Creations. Thanks for watching.